Hi, Adrian again. Um, Discussing basically the fourth article that I reviewed. I reviewed the first three documents in something a friend dropped off, and so now I've moved on to a new one, and I'll show you that. It's why the visceral reaction to biblical Christianity and how do we respond. So we, I presume, is Christians, but it pretty much takes that view if you read through the thread. So I'm going to read some excerpts here and then kind of respond as we go along. So I'm going to put my new reading glasses on. I had cataract surgery, and so I need some assistance with close reading. Okay, starts off. Christianity is the most persecuted religion in the world, and hostility toward Christians in the West seems to be growing exponentially. Why? Well, before we get to the whys, let's discuss what persecution actually means and the fact that it's going on in the West, growing exponentially, the so-called persecution. There's 8 major categories of persecution that is going on around the world against Christianity. It's mostly in Muslim countries, a lot of African nations and stuff like that. In America, well, let me ask you this. Is there violence and physical attacks against Christians going on in this country? And if so, by who? Imprisonment and detention. Anyone you know in America has gone to prison or jail because they're Christian? Discrimination, this one possibly. This can occur in various aspects of life, including employment, education, and access to public services. Don't know anyone who's been fired or let go or gone over in a promotion because of their Christianity. Social ostracism, well, people may be, I guess if you live on atheist or agnostic street, or neighborhoods full of these kinds of people, of which you'll find none in America, then that may apply, but not likely. Forced conversion. Has anyone forced you to be part of another religion that's not Christian? No? I don't think so. Legal restrictions. Government may impose laws that restrict religious practices, such as banning religious gatherings. I don't think that's happening. Well, there was the COVID pandemic, and some people blame Fauci for that. So maybe you could count that one as a legal restriction against harassment and intimidation. Anyone harass you? Destruction of religious sites. Of course, the only ones we know about there is the whites burning black churches. So I think those whites were Christian. So, all right. So enough facetiousness here, but I'd just like to point out. So they basically start off with a big statement, and I'm not buying it for the reasons I just laid out. So the answer to this question, why? In short, darkness hates light. There's the word hate. The battle raging today and throughout history is ultimately a war between only two foundational worldviews. One worldview is built on the light of the truth of God's word, and the other is mired in the darkness of man's ideas and the enemy's lies. Wow. It's the same battle of God's word versus man's, as old as Genesis 3. Okay, here's one. By proclaiming God's word as true, I'm presuming is Christianity, Christians, declaring their foundation false. By proclaiming God's word as true, we're declaring their foundation false. And by attacking their foundation, we're shaking the entire edifice of their worldview. So this is the plan moving forward to screw me up. How they think, live, justify, argue, make choices, cope with the past, find meaning in the present, or plan for the future are all part of the edifice of their worldview that collapses if their foundation fails. And I believe what this is saying is that we want their foundation to fail. They want me to fail. Okay. As our culture and much of the church turns away from the anchor of God's absolute truth, the secular view, Mr. Secular here, of truth is fluid, personal, and defined by feelings. It dominates. Let me reread the sentence. As our culture and much of the church turns away from the anchor of God's absolute truth, the secular view of truth as fluid, personal, and defined by feelings dominates, as proclaimed in Genesis 3:6. This has resulted in people feeling increasingly free to simply emotively attack what they view as a danger to the definition of their being. This is why unbelievers are so emotional and frequently illogical and irrational as they attack Christianity. All right. So the rest of the article basically goes on to say that how do we combat it? Well, we have to be nice to them and bring them into their flock. So I'll give them credit for not coming up with a plan. But sort of the first part and the second part, which I'm not reading, but it starts with this in mind: how do we respond? And the Bible tells us, we got to be cool, kind of thing. It's like don't be vindictive and stuff like that. Okay, so there's that. However, the front end of it really kind of demonizes people who are not Christians. It's kind of what I've just laid out for you. If you don't see it that way, I'd love to discuss that, because it seems pretty obvious to me that all morals and the way to really live life is through Christianity. And if you don't, you're kind of flawed. You have this worldview thing that, possibly man created God, right? That's referenced in here, as opposed to God created man. Well, it is two worldviews. They're views that are on this world. And they disagree. Are we, the so-called devil? Are we that bad? I mean, am I a bad human being? This kind of portrays me as that, so that's kind of resentful. However, this message read by Christians will be interpreted very differently. And I don't believe there'll be any questions as to who wrote this, who the author is, but clearly I see an agenda in it, in mobilizing and, be nice to these bad people would be the Christian way. That this message, the entire message is, okay, these people, bad. These people maybe could be saved, so be nice to them. So anyway, that's this guy, and I'm going to cut this short. I'll do the other one separately. The other one, as a preview, every good thing secularists argue for comes from the Bible. We'll discuss that one next. See you later. I wouldn't mind any feedback on how these video rebuttals are, but it's less time consuming than writing responses.